All right, this is part 2 of the collection video. Just finishing up some of these here. All right, got some good ones here. All right, starting off with Rocket to Russia by the Ramones. Awesome reissue. This thing sounds great. Who pressed this? Let's see here. I'm not sure exactly, but anyway, it sounds great. I think it was just reissued a couple of years ago, so they did a really good job. It's on 180 gram vinyl, and it sounds incredible. So good. This is one of their best albums, I think. This and Road to Ruin, and their first album, especially. So yeah, this is great. It's got Cretin Hop, Rockaway Beach, which I love. Happy Family, Sheena's a Punk Rocker, all those classics. So, you know, the Ramones were certainly, to me, better than the Sex Pistols, which was kind of their I don't know about predecessor, but they might have come a little bit before them. But they definitely were better, I thought, and they had a lot more energy, and their live shows, from what I heard, were incredible. And I mean, this is those punk beginnings, along with another album that I'm going to show you here, which was about 8 years before that album. So that's cool. Anyway, here's another Ramones album, which I've mentioned already. That is Road to Ruin. This is a little more of a poppy album. It's got I Want to Be Sedated on it, and Needles and Pins, and those tracks. I Just Want to Have Something to Do. So those are all good tunes too. But I mean, they're a lot more poppy. I mean, it's still punk rock, but it's definitely more polished and not as dirty and not as like hard hitting. You know, they were trying to be, you know, like the Queen's equivalent of the Beatles at this point, I think. You know, they got more into songwriting, which is awesome. You know, goes back to what I was saying about Bob Dylan. I always applaud a band when they, you know, try to branch out and do something different. So yeah, Road to Ruin. If you haven't heard that, it's good shit. All right, so here's the one I just brought up a second ago, and this is an incredible reissue, and it's on Sundays, and it's probably Sunday's best release because it sounds really great. And that, of course, is Funhouse by the Stooges. This is probably in my top 10, if not top 5 favorite albums ever. It's so good, so good. I love the trick photography there. When you turn it that way, you see the face here. I think it's Ron Ashton, and then Iggy Pop here, sliding on the stage. It's trick photography. Ugh. When I was younger, I always thought that it was 2 covers. I never really put it together that it's the same cover, because you'd see pictures of the album face like this, and then you'd see pictures of the album face like this. So I was like, oh, I got to get both covers of that. But it's the same cover. Really cool gatefold here, them in the studio, lying out on a carpet. Yeah, man, like this is an example of a perfect album, if you ask me. It's so fucking good. So yeah, that's Funhouse. The Stooges, of course. Okay, let's move on here. I'm gonna do a video soon of the top 10 in my collection, and this will definitely be on there, so look out for that. Alright, up next, a couple more staples that you gotta have, if you ask me. Starting with reissue of White Light, White Heat by the Velvet Underground, of course. It's a Verve reissue. Now, a lot of people talk about this album being their best, and I mean, I'm gonna have to disagree. I mean, it's great. I love it. It's just a little, okay, like, I'm gonna go ahead and say this, like, I love experimental music, but I love when an experimental band, like, sticks to their roots. And Loaded, okay, this album I'm gonna show you next, Loaded, is a perfect example of what I'm talking about. That's their best album, if you ask me, between Loaded and Velvet Underground and Nico. So obviously that's where my taste gravitates towards. But anyway, yeah, White Light, White Heat's great though. But yeah, it's very experimental and noisy, very atonal. Sister Ray, a 17-minute last track there. I mean, there's moments of that that are unlistenable to me, and I know people are gonna hate me for saying that, but I'm sorry, you know, that's just the way I feel about it. But the rest of this album, I still think it's great though. And and then it has songs like Here She Comes Now, which is like pretty much everything off their self-titled album, just more mellow and just straightforward, you know. So they never really held themselves to any, like, you know, certain ideas, or they were never like, this is the path we're going on. They were more like, we're gonna set out to do something different each album, which I applaud. So, all right, now let's talk about Loaded, which, like I said, is my favorite Velvet Underground album. I can't tell you why. Well, I can't tell you why, because every track's so good. Just talk about it track by track. This will also be in my top 10 when I make my top 10 video. So, be looking out for that. But, I mean, okay, you can't go wrong with these songs. All right, starting out with Who Loves the Sun, which is basically a Beatles song. And I'm a Beatles fanatic. George Harrison playing in the background, by the way. Yeah, Who Loves the Sun, which is a Beatles. I mean, it's a Beatles song, basically. Then you got Sweet Jane, which is one of their best songs ever. That and Rock and Roll back to back to one another, and so fucking incredible. Cool It Down, which is kind of more of a rock and roll type tune. And The New Age, a beautiful piano ballad. So, I mean, that's just the first half, the first side. And then Lonesome Cowboy Bill, which is kind of like a Tom Waits rockabilly type tune. Head Held High, another rock and roll tune. Train Round the Bend, which is kind of like a Grateful Dead tune. And then the album closer is Oh Sweet Nothing. And that's got to be in my top 10 favorite songs ever. And it's the album closer, and it just leaves you like wanting more so bad. So to me, that's why I'm so into this album. Some of y'all might disagree, but you know what? We all have our opinions, and it doesn't get any better than this, if you ask me. So, yeah, thank you, Lou Reed and John Cale and everyone else involved. All right, last one here for this video, and perfect for this because it's truly a classic. This is actually the Japanese reissue. I don't know exactly what year, but it was in the 70s. It's old, but it's a reissue nonetheless. So anyway, that is Hunky Dory by Mr. David Bowie. This album, I go back and forth between this being my favorite and Ziggy Stardust. It's hard to say, man. Like, it just depends on what day of the week it is. It comes down to that. It's completely random. God, man. Yeah, what a good album. I mean, I don't have to tell y'all that. Okay, I'll go ahead and talk about the tracks here too, like I did with Loaded there. But it starts with Changes, which is, I mean, such an iconic song everyone knows. Oh You Pretty Things is probably at least one of my favorites on the album. And then you got Life on Mars, perfect song. Song for Bob Dylan, followed by Queen Bitch, which you don't see coming because this is a relatively mellow record. A lot of piano songs and slower acoustic songs. And then that riff just opens up for Queen Bitch. Down. Oh, and it sounds so good on vinyl. This is a Japanese pressing, and like it sounds great. So this gets a lot of play, and it's definitely a vital part of a collection. You have to have this if you collect any David Bowie. So anyway, I have an American pressing of it, or whatever, the original pressing, but it's in bad shape, and I don't really play it. This is the one I play. So there it is, Hunky Dory. You all know it. All right, I'm gonna go ahead and wrap this up. Thanks for watching, guys. I mean, I'll keep making more videos, and I'll try not to take any long absences like I did this last time. All right, guys, y'all take it easy.